Hi, in today's video I would like to give you a run through of how I mixed the guitars from the last cover video that I did. I'm only using free plugins again, and you will be able to create this tone yourself if you download all the resources linked in the description below. So it's a melodic hardcore song, meaning that there's lots of melodies, lead guitars and clean guitars. And with melodic hardcore you also tend to have melodies in the rhythm guitars, so that's kind of interesting. Let's listen to the full mix. Okay, let's focus on the rhythm guitars, and I'm going to warn you, there's going to be crackling. I have no clue why, but OBS picks up some crackling here. It's just the rhythm guitar sound. Every other project doesn't have this issue. I've tried countless buffer sizes. I've tried changing the interface. It doesn't change how OBS behaves. So I'm sorry. Maybe if anyone has any tips on this, let me know. So this is the guitars on its own. Let's check out the signal chain. It's hard panned left and right, so I'm using a stereo bus. The first is a Tube Screamer copy by Nembrini Audio, the NA808. And I'm using quite a bit of drive here because the amp gain is already turned down and I wanted to have some overdrive from the pedal. As an amp, I'm using the Ignite Emissary. I think it's one of the best amps out there because it sounds great out of the box. You don't usually need to work a lot on the EQ. I just played around with the gain, and how I gain stage is I try to find a part that has lots of palm mutes and I dial it in so it has just enough gain, and I dial it back a bit more, because if you double track guitars, you already have a fuller sound. You don't need to have as much gain as if you were playing alone. So let's listen to some palm mutes. Yeah, it's got enough clarity to still have good resonance for lead stuff that is played in here. Melodies that are being played in the rhythm section, but it has enough gain for chugs. So the only thing I changed was the stereo output again, and I changed the power amp section to EL34s, which is just a minute difference, but I like the characteristics of EL34s more. As an impulse response, I'm using ML SoundLab's best IR in the world, combined with the Resington Barefoot 1. I will show you how the ML SoundLab sounds on its own. And the Barefoot one. And combining them together. So as you can see, I'm trying to find two IRs that really complement each other. One that is more of a bass and high-end boosted one, and one that is really neutral. And I'm blending the volumes just to see what I like more. I'm also using the built-in high-pass and low-pass filters in LeCab2 by Poulin. Next up, I'm using a Rea X comp, which is just there to get rid of any peaks that would happen if I picked harder. Then I'm using an exciter, the Petite Excite by FineCutBodies, and I'm using this because this is an instrumental song and I want the instruments to be louder. If there's vocals in your song, I wouldn't necessarily use an exciter on guitars because I don't want it to be as straightforward. So let's listen to the guitars without it. And with it turned on. So it just rounds the sound a little bit more. It's not as mid-focused, and it just really works well in the instrumental mix, in my opinion. Next up, I'm using an EQ with a high-pass filter at 75 Hz and a low-pass filter at 8500 Hz. And I'm also getting rid of a honky frequency at 2200 Hz. That's just dependent on what kind of impulse response you're using. Without the EQ, it sounds like this. And and with it turned on. So as you can see, I'm making room for bass, and I'm making room for higher present stuff like vocals and drums. And the last plugin I'm using is the W1 limiter, which is just there to have the same level overall on guitars through the whole song. Let's focus on the lead guitars. The lead guitars here are actually more distant. On the solo, your brain thinks it's louder because you see me playing it in the playthrough video, but it's actually not very loud in the mix. So let's check out the lead part. So what I'm using on lead guitars is again the Nembrini audio with the tone fully cranked, and the Amplex Nalex, which is great if you don't have an idea what kind of tone you're going for, because by the click here you can actually have a different preamp. It's a text-based setting that you can load into this amp simulation. I did play around quite a lot with the EQ section here just to find a very narrow band that I wanted to sound good. As IRs, I'm using the best IR in the world combined with a Diezel one. It just worked really well, so that's what I'm using. The Ray X comp is there for safety reasons. If I have any pick attack that is just different from the others, it will compensate for that. Then I'm using a quite narrow band. I'm using a high pass filter at 350 Hz to 8500 Hz. Without it, it sounds like this. And with it turned on. So it just sits in a very specific area of the mix, and that's what I'm using. As a reverb, I'm using the fantastic Valhalla Supermassive because it comes with great presets, and I'm only using 25% in the mix. For lead guitars distorted, this actually works really well. The width is at 100% because I want the effect to be left and right, but the center guitar to be clean as possible. And I'm again using the W1 limiter to level it in. I'm just going to show you how it sounds without it, just for you to have a comparison. So it's got this nice tail, this nice spread out effect that really works well in the mix. So lead guitar and rhythm guitar sound like this. Yeah. Then let's focus on the clean guitars here. I've got an intro with clean guitars that has a center guitar that sounds like this. I wanted it to be the main driving guitar here, so this is why it's in the center, and in the mix it's quite noticeable. I'm using a SLAX compressor so that the pick attack is compressed and it sounds like I'm playing it in one part. Because it's got lots of hammer-ons and pull-offs, I wanted it to be the same. Then I'm using again the emissary in the clean channel, and I'm using a preset-based multi-effect. It's the Ujam Finisher Micro with the cab and room setting because I like having a little bit of a cab and room before it actually hits my IR, which sounds strange, but it works really well. And as an IR, I'm using, again, ML Soundlab's best IR in the world, combined with the Catharsis S-Preshigh. Going into a Valhalla Supermassive in the delay setting. Without it, it sounds like this. It's just missing something, so that's why I've been using this. Again, just 15% mix and 100% width. And last but not least, I'm using an epicVerb plugin that just gives it more room. And then I'm using the W1 limiter again to keep it at a certain level. Then I have the clean guitars on the sides, hard-panned left and right. They sound very distant. I didn't want it to be noticeable in the mix, so this is how they. So what I've been using is again the SLAX compressor and the Amplex Nalex with the Citrus CR120, which is an orange simulation. I wanted it to have breakup. I wanted it to be kind of broken sounding, but it worked really well. And I'm using the ML Sound Labs Best RA in the World again, combined with a Jazz Chorus Room mic, which on its own sounds really thin. So this is how it sounds. But combined with the ML Sound Lab, it's just massive. And this Valhalla Supermassive with the Echo Hall preset just gives it more space. Without it, it would sound very boring. And with it turned on, I'm using 50% mix because this is really something that I didn't want to be as loud in the mix, or not as loud, but as present in the mix. I wanted it to be distant. So if you have any questions regarding my mix run through, please let me know. There's a video on bass and drums, so you can watch that. And yeah, that's about it. If you have any questions, let me know. If you have any tips on how to get rid of the crackle, also let me know. I'm really running out of ideas, so thanks for watching and goodbye.